They really couldn't do things on their own. It honestly was watching the full dependence that all of the female versions of the Italian family had. It was always subjected to the man of the house or who was controlling everything, and that just left such an impression on me. That was not how I wanted my life to be.
Welcome back to another episode of Human Expedition, and we're at the lovely studios of Core Vantage Insurance, and I'm excited to have Mary Vasinda with me today. Round the clock, home health, and a bunch of other stuff. So what all are you doing these days?
Well, we originally started in the assisted living business, and my partners are two physicians who have retired. So we are slowly exiting the assisted living business
Right.
After almost 40 years. And we're now in the home health, or continue to be in the home health, companion care, senior placement business, as well as we do have a nonprofit that helps disadvantaged and disabled individuals.
Oh, very nice. So at around the clock, all the services, so you do nursing.
So there's two components of around the clock. There's the licensed home health agency that is paid for by insurance. It's where nurses and physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists go to your home. And it's generally post-surgery, illness. It's designed to be a short-term fix so that you can come out of the hospital or prevent you from going into a skilled nursing facility.
Yeah, and that's part of our world too, right? Because you have to qualify to be able to get
Absolutely.
those services, right?
Yes.
And then
Everyth-
gods of the insurance world decide.
Absolutely. Insurance dictates number of visits sometimes. Even, even we have to fight them because the doctors want more than the insurance companies are willing to give. And then there's pre-authorizations. The insurance world does play a huge role in the home health side.
Yeah, and I just know it from our side that there's always that weird handoff if they've had home health and then they come to outpatient.
Yes.
We have to make sure that they've been discharged completely or we get in trouble too. So it's a strange world. So let's go back to when you were a kid, what was your first I want to be when I grow up thought?
I grew up in a very first generation, very large Italian family on both sides. Hard workers, dedicated family people, not beyond some of them grammar school and high school education.
Right. Okay.
And one of the things that became very clear was there was a lot of dependency on each other. And my parents in particular spoke broken English. Some of my relatives spoke no English. And it became clear to me that I needed to be a little more independent and a little more on my game in order to not even help my parents as I started to get older, but also I kind of left an indelible mark on the fact that most of the women in an Italian family were not of the kind where they knew how to drive a car, balance a checkbook, go to a store, and where that environment was not one that I wanted to have for myself as I grew older.
So it was all relying on the men and
yes. Okay. And when one passed away, which again, as a young child, my uncle passed away very unexpectedly. My aunt did not know what to do. If it wasn't for all of us helping, she couldn't drive. Okay. Didn't know how to balance a checkbook, didn't know how to order anything, didn't know how to pay utilities. And, this was certainly not the age of computerization back in those days. Yeah. So it even left a more indelible mark that I needed to be independent and self-serving for myself.
So that was one of your early concerns, fears about life and having to take care of yourself, basically,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So what, out of all that and the hardworking stuff, what core values did you learn then that you still...
My family was very, very much about family and very hardworking. And I work very hard, and family and friends are very important to me.
Right. So you still carry that. And the independence. And the
independence. But everything was about family. There was outings were going to another relative's house. There was never going to a restaurant. When I went away to college, my friends all made fun of me because I had not eaten anything but Italian food my entire life. I had no idea what Mexican food was or Asian food was when I went to college. So it was very much an Italian culture. Some of my friends were obviously Italian, a couple were not. So they opened my eyes to a few other things as we were growing up. But I grew up in a very, very traditional Italian family where family came first for everything.
Right. But you said that it wasn't an educated, at least college educated. So what was that like when you said, "Hey, I think I'm going to go to college"?
I am the only one in my generation and above who has 4-year college education and beyond that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
None of my cousins went to college, or if they did, they went to a 2-year school. I'm also the one that lives the farthest away. I'm the only one that has kind of left the nest, so to speak. And it was tough grit. And my parents didn't quite understand when I went to school. And I do tell the story when I first went away. And I had to be within distance to come home for family events. So I could only go to school within an hour or two of where I lived. So when I went away to school, I went to Rochester, which was an hour and a half outside of Syracuse. I grew up in upstate New York. They dropped me off at my door. My mother dropped to the ground and kissed the ground and said, "I've lost my daughter."
Oh my God.
Because they didn't quite understand that I was leaving and going away to school.
That sets up a crazy expectation though, right? Like, so how did you deal with, because you're doing something that hadn't been navigated. So setbacks and being stuck and failures, was there ever a time in college you're like, maybe this isn't for me, or was the independence carrying?
No, I was good.
You were done? You
Yeah,
were like, I'm carrying this through?
I was good. I tried to balance it for a while. Finally convinced my dad I needed a car because it was tough to take the bus because I had to come home for large family events, and sometimes that meant it was a Sunday dinner I had to show up for. And
so often.
Yeah, even from school,
Right.
that was the expectation is if it was a christening, substantial birthday, obviously wedding or funerals, but I mean, I had to be there. So, over time that became a little less, but in my first few years, that was a expectation. So it was kind of balancing back the home life
Yeah,
plus
that's
going
interesting.
away to school.
So what strategies did you come up with back then? Like, because you went from it sounds like a tight-knit, large family to all of a sudden at a university with people from all over. And how did you adapt to that out of a big family?
It was funny. One of my college roommates in school was from Syracuse and also was Italian. It just so happened they matched us up, so it
A little bit of home.
a little bit of home, and we would drive back together when we had to go back to Syracuse. But I was good. I was always kind of independent. I started working at a very young age, whether it was babysitting, and then I finally started working in retail when I was 15 and a half, and wasn't 16 yet. So I've always been kind of a little bit independent. So that I was good with that. I could.
But
I
that
could
wasn't
manage.
even a normal thing for your family, right? That
No.
a girl that age would be like, I'm going out and getting a job.
Yes. I wanted to continue that streak of independence, I guess.
That's interesting. So part of it too is like the struggle we have inside, right? Like the voices in our heads. So there's the internal battle of, and it sounded like you had a lot of trying to balance family with doing what you wanted to do, right?
Yes.
So that was in there. And what do you think was there an event where you just said, maybe this isn't for me and I want to quit, or you were just head down, I'm doing this irregardless?
No, head down. I kept plowing forward and looking at different ways I could better myself, further my education. And as time went on, my parents became a little more intrigued, which is kind of was a little turning at the table, especially when moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. And at that point, it was almost like an adventure for them. They were retired at that point, and bringing them even out to California was such a novelty because they didn't travel. I mean, again, traveling was, we did vacations on the Jersey Shore or something that was within a couple hours of driving distance. They rarely were on a plane. And so it became very interesting after they became very curious, and they would come out and they would spend about a month with us in California, and then I'd go back with all kinds of stories. I mean, it was like taking your children and to their first new adventure, going to the beach or doing this or doing that. Wherever we took them, it was such a novelty, and it was so gratiating to watch them experience some of these things even at their
At
older
that
age.
age, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I grew up in Montana, and it's almost the same story, but on a small scale, right? Like we didn't leave. I think I left the state 3 times before high school, right? Like you just didn't go anywhere. It's like,
No, I was quite the rebel. We did go from upstate New York. The big thing was to go to Florida for spring break, go down to Daytona and Fort Lauderdale. And as a senior in high school, we all went, and my father forbade me to go. And I kind of said, I'm going. And he said, I'm going to throw you out of the house when you come back. And okay. And so one of my dearest friends that I grew up with lived across the street, and her dad kind of had a little talk with my dad that it was okay for us to go. Well, that kind of got him halfway to letting me go. And then another good friend of ours, who's mine, that was also going, was another grew up Italian. Was Italian, and her dad was my father's barber, and he let her go. So finally, begrudgingly, I got to go, and that was our first plane ride. All of us girls, that was our first plane ride. Was
senior year of high school.
Senior year in high school to go to Florida for spring break.
Wow. All right. So you were like, I'm going for this. So you started carving your own path early.
Yes.
Right. You were like, I'm not doing this. I'm going to find my own way.
Yes.
Really early. So where was that point where you were like, I'm doing my own thing? Was there an actual decision like I'm doing my own thing, or was it just?
I think it honestly was watching the full dependence that all of the female versions of the Italian family had. They really couldn't do things on their own. It was always subjected to, the man of the house or
Right.
who was controlling everything, and that just left such an impression on me at a young age that was not how I wanted my life to be.
Yeah, but that's not the norm, right? The norm is to follow what is showed to you. So there was something in you that said, I don't like what I see. Like I'm doing something different.
I just didn't want to be dependent.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, family values are still critically important to me, and I still do a lot with family, and that part has always stayed with me. But the dependence piece just
was what bothered you, right?
Bothered me. Yeah.
Okay. What about, so you go off, so now you graduate college, and what was the first job out of college?
Actually worked for a gentleman who was one of my professors in school, and he opened a telecommunications company. So my career started in telecommunications. It was a division of Contel, and it was when the regulations were changing where you could own your own phone system as opposed to rent it from the telephone company. So it was just when they were starting to have independence away from the monopolies of a telephone company. And he was one of the very few. He was corporate America bred too. He came from Xerox and opened his own company, was one of my professors, and hired me out of his class. And I started marketing and selling phone systems to companies. And then eventually became the sales manager. And then after that moved into corporate sales out of New York, and continued to work in the non-regulated side of telecommunications, selling people private phone systems.
So then how do you get from that to assisted living? That's a little divergence, right?
It's a little divergence. We moved, I was working in and out of New York, and John, my husband at the time, got a job out of college at Mobile Chemical, and he was an electrical engineer flying around from home base was Rochester, but flying around to different plants, setting up electrical lines, production lines for Mobile. And I was traveling, but in and out of New York. So he decided, I guess I should say at the time, that he was kind of done with traveling and we were going to settle down, and ended up taking a position with Mobile out in California, here in Bakersfield. And at that time, I then asked to transfer to the corporate division of the company I was working for, and they coincidentally needed an office opened in Los Angeles. The naivety of not knowing the difference between Bakersfield and Los Angeles when you live in upstate New York was quite the shock.
Well, it's got to be a shock at that time, just going from New York to California.
Well, going from New York to Bakersfield
Yeah, well, yeah.
was quite the shock.
Because Bakersfield wasn't very big back then.
This was 1985, and it was not.
Right.
And I think my only salvation going from New York to Bakersfield is I actually went from New York to LA, because my office was down on State College and Ball Road, right outside of Disneyland. So I was nowhere near Bakersfield to commute daily. So I had to stay down in Los Angeles, and that was probably my salvation of going from big city to big city. And then I would come home on the weekends, and I always tell the joke, I could get myself around LA, but I couldn't get myself across the Crosstown Freeway in Bakersfield back then, because I was hardly in
single one?
Bakersfield. Yeah, the single one, because it was hardly in Bakersfield. And once we moved to Bakersfield, we had invested our, I would call it money from our marriage plus the sale of the house from back east into an assisted living facility that we knew nothing about. My husband at the time was like, nope, seniors is the way to go. It's, recession proof and so on and so forth. So we invested, quote unquote, all the money we had at the time.
Right.
And I was traveling still on the road with national accounts. And John was in Bakersfield, and we invested in a project that was a build from ground up, and it was going south quickly. The builder was pilfering it from it, contractors were pilfering, things were getting stolen. It was very mismanaged. And there were a few partners in the project other than ourselves, and before the project even opened, it was kind of doomed. And John approached a couple of the other partners and made the decision we would buy everybody else out. And unfortunately, about 50 cents on the dollar, because they were going to lose everything. And one of the partners had operated nursing homes. And so the deal was, if John would run the facility, we'd all buy everybody else out, and he would teach John the business.
So you take this big risk and then double down on that risk.
Double down on that risk. John left mobile, which nobody believed he was leaving to go into the senior world. So that wasn't his background. They were pretty sure he was being poached by a competitor. They took all his manuals and hid him from him before he left.
You're not taking our secrets.
Yes, only to find out he truly went into running an assisted living facility. And we lived on my salary. I stayed in corporate America for another couple of years. Well, I stayed for longer than that, but I stayed in corporate America because we needed one income to live on.
Right.
And it took John about 18 months, and he turned it around where it was no longer doors were going to be closed, so to speak. And we learned the assisted living business. I would do bingos and tours on weekends, and my mother-in-law was a nurse. She'd do assessments, and we started it, our very first assisted living facility.
So what's the turning point in that where you leave and go full-time into?
Contel sold out to GTE. I still stayed working in corporate America, and I would have and the choice was I either leave or go to Dallas with GTE after the purchase. And as you know, most people in Bakersfield that worked for Contel either went in other businesses themselves or transferred to Dallas. There wasn't much marketing experience in still the utility side of telecommunications. So they kind of cut me a deal. They asked me if I would stay on. They would pay for me to commute for 2 years from Bakersfield to Dallas weekly. And so I did that. And with the understanding that after that, I would get my severance from the sale. And so I commuted for almost 2 years weekly from Bakersfield to Dallas. And GTE paid for everything. And then it was coming a point in time where we were buying another assisted living facility. And then we were ready to buy a third property, still in assisted living. And we had kind of come to the decision that I needed to leave and get involved in the businesses. And the commute was getting very difficult for me. It was tiring. It was wearing thin.
So it wasn't it was just the timing of it then. So
I think it was a combination of both. We were growing in the assisted living business, and it was getting very tough. It was tough for me to do that weekly commute.
So this is the 90s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what was the competition like back then in the assisted living world?
Not much at all.
Okay.
We were just starting up. Our first property was Redwood Village, and then we bought the next property we bought was Cambridge Hills, which are still in existence. Actually, these are all still in existence today, just different names. But they were two up on the hill in Mount Vernon, and they were nursing homes that got converted to
Okay.
assisted livings. And so we got involved in that one. Then over the years, we bought and sold. Those were ones that John and I owned by ourselves. And then as we continued to grow, we brought in two physician partners who were good friends of ours to continue growing in the assisted living world.
Okay. So you're doing all that. When did the home health start?
We started actually first with companion care.
Okay.
Because when we bought out a 12-bed or 16-bed, I'm sorry, assisted living facility, and that owner also happened to have a companion care business, which we knew nothing about. And at the time, so that was 1994, we bought the 16-bed and the assisted living. That's pretty much when I started getting involved in the business. I started running companion care company, which was an eye-opener coming from corporate American professionalism. It was shocking to me that people didn't show up for work, didn't have a way to get to work, and would leave unattended and need people, and didn't seem to care too much about that.
Right.
I remember having to do my first bed bath on a quadriplegic, and I was talking to one of our assisted living administrators because I'm like, how do I do a bed bath on a paraplegic? I knew nothing about how to do it. I learned pretty quickly driving over what I needed to do. So the reality of running that business became very clear very quickly.
That is another huge divergence from corporate America to
yes, absolutely.
little humbling.
Very humbling and very, I learned healthcare very quickly. I had to do shifts. I had to do diaper changes. I had to do bed baths. I had to, not something they teach you in corporate America. So it was very quickly hands-on when people didn't show up. And I mean, you're leaving disabled or people, that needed care. And if I didn't have staff, I'd go do it.
Right.
So
we've come 360 then.
Yes, till we've gotten
so now
bigger.
We're back to people not showing up.
People not showing up, yes. And then after that, we started home health. And that became more of a necessity as we started having more assisted living facilities. Home health was becoming more popular, but nurses and therapists were coming in and out of our facilities with no accountability. John would say, well, they came in and they saw somebody, then the family would be upset because they're like, well, what'd the nurse say or what'd the therapist say? Anyway, it was becoming out of control because it's just when home health was starting to become more prominent. Right. And we kind of made the decision that we needed to go in the business to control it for our own facilities. Mm-hmm. So we actually hired a firm out of LA who helped us put the package together to go into the licensed home health end of the world. And that was in 1996.
Okay. But then it's finding all that staff too, right?
Finding all that
the
staff.
nurses and the therapists.
It still is finding all that
Yeah,
stuff.
there's still a shortage of all of it, right?
Still a shortage of all of that in all arenas, whether it's caregivers or therapists or nurses. It's still finding staff is a constant struggle.
So how many employees do you have at around the clock now, including the companion care?
Just shy of about 300.
So you're back to corporate America.
We're back to corporate. I like to think it's not quite corporate America.
Some mini corporate America.
We still try to retain the family feel of being a smaller organization, but yes, it's which you have to run as a large organization, especially in the state of California.
Yeah, but that doesn't include, how many assisted livings do you still have?
We don't. We're actually, we're closing on our last one actually today.
Okay.
We sold our 3 large facilities to the same organization out of Los Angeles. So they have taken all 3 of our large one. We will be by the next week or 2 out of the assisted living business.
So that obviously was nowhere in the plans when you left Rochester, left college.
Nope.
So how do you now, your internal compass of moving forward, and how do you stay aligned with your original goals or original core values and family values with what it's become?
I really try very hard in our environment in the office to make it still a family environment. We do help employees on a number of personal issues. We do celebrations. We do birthdays. We do a lot of things that make it somewhat family environment. I can't compete obviously with the large hospitals on some of their whether it's their 401k plans or their benefit plans.
Yeah.
So, we try by making it more family friendly, more attuned to families and single moms who have to do things with children and make it work a little more flexible for them. So we really try to keep that same kind of family atmosphere, which gives people hopefully an added value of why they want to work for around the clock.
Yeah.
And in
So you use that family that you learned about early to
Yes.
be like, I know how to do big families. So.
Yes. And I still am very close. I'm still very good friends with my college roommates, which is 45 years, and we get together once to twice a year. Right. So family and friends are still very important to me, and I do carve out time for a number of family and friend involvement issues.
Okay. So is that how you find fulfillment now, like that family aspect and helping just your employees, or what gives you fulfillment these days?
Taking care, knowing we've made a difference in somebody's life. In terms of caring for individuals, knowing that if it wasn't for around the clock, that person, whether it's companion care or home health, may not have had a positive outcome. So knowing we can affect people positively is very rewarding. As well as as I'm getting older, as I say, it's about making memories. So I am carving out more time to spend with families and friends. I've lost 2 of my college roommates to death. So there's, it's at the point now where if my work schedule allows and there are things I can attend, I will make a point of making sure I can be available and attend whatever that event is or that situation is.
That's awesome. So has your definition of success changed from corporate America to, or even leaving college to corporate America to now?
Yes, success in corporate America is if anybody's been in corporate America, it's how do you move up the ladder?
Right.
That's not the case here.
Yeah.
And I think again it's more knowing you make a difference. So yes, success in corporate America was how do you move up the ladder? How do you get a bigger title? Right. And that's not the case now. Now it's how do we make a difference in somebody's lives? How can we help somebody? How have we been effective in making somebody's life better?
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize. I looked at it years ago when the number of people that gets discharged from a hospital that don't get any follow-up care is astronomical, because you have to meet those certain criteria to be eligible, right?
Yes.
But they discharge like 80% of people to families that have no training, no.
Well, they're a little better at doing that, but I would have to say, and I don't want my hospital friends to get mad at me, but clearly what's in the discharge paperwork and what's when you get to the home don't match. Right. So they are getting better at discharging people with home health services, but the reality check of what they tell you in the hospital and we find when we walk in the house are not close.
Yeah, that's because we have some therapists in the hospital, right? And we try to tell them, be careful because if you walk them too far or you don't document the right level of transfers, they can't
Absolutely.
get service afterwards.
Absolutely.
So don't over embellish what people
Absolutely.
can do.
It's unfortunately the regulations guide some things that should be more common sense.
Yeah. Well, you'd hope, but
yeah, you would hope,
but that's corporate America.
Well, CMS or Medicare's guidelines are very strict.
Right.
Insurance companies adopt those guidelines, and you're correct. If somebody can walk 150 feet and they may have only done it one time with 2 people helping them, they get discharged with nothing. They get home and they can't even get out of bed to get to the bathroom.
Yeah, because 150 feet is considered limited community ambulation, which is I still can't wrap my brain around.
I know.
Who came up with that number.
We can't either. And unfortunately, as technology is changing, Medicare's guidelines and insurance companies follow it haven't changed. They need to be updated. There's so much more technology and things that can be done in a home setting, but don't necessarily get approved by either Medicare or the insurance companies because the regulations are so old that they haven't stepped up to the new technology changes.
Yeah, I see that too. It's like,
yeah,
there is so much crazy technology that, smart homes and things that could actually alert and help, but.
Well, it's very simple, like an IV. If somebody wants to go home with an IV, Medicare won't pay for the IV medication because it's at home. but they'll pay for it if you're in the hospital or if you go to an outpatient clinic, which is crazy because that's twice as much money.
Right.
We're already in there taking care of them for a wound or something else, but yet if the person has Medicare, the family has to pay for the IV medication itself.
So
Kinda crazy.
what do you tell, like, do you guys do consulting with families of, hey, it's time to put mom or dad in assisted living, or
We been fortunate. I have a lot of tenure in my organization, and so we've all been through quite a number of changes over the years, and just reality changes of being involved in the business. And generally, when a family has hit that point of transition, we ask them to come in the office, and we put 3 or 4 of us in a conference room with all different backgrounds, and we go through all the options. We explain this is what if you stay at home with home care, this is what it will be. This is the cost. If you go to assisted living. If someone's in a more fragile state, how do you start with home health and transition to palliative or hospice? So we never try to tell somebody. I mean, every family's different. You can't tell them what's the right formula for them,
right?
but we certainly can give them quite a bit of information for them to then pick and choose what is the formula that works, and that may change. And we tell them we can start with this, and 3 months this might change for you, or 6 months this might change for you.
So John actually was right years ago, but because we didn't see the baby boomers. Well, we saw it, but nobody talked about it.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden it's
everywhere.
The baby boomers did age.
Yes. And there is a proliferation of assisted livings in this town. So yes. And home health and companion care companies now.
Yeah, so it all came back. Yeah, it was the same for when I started Terrio years ago, 30 years ago, 28 years ago. They thought it was wrapped up, right? And now, all these years later, there's so much more competition.
Absolutely.
Corporate comes in, venture capital and private equity, and it just changes the game, right?
Absolutely.
You have to get even better at competition.
Absolutely. We're one of the only ones that are still locally owned in Bakersfield that hasn't been part of a chain or bought out or merged. And this is our 40-year anniversary this year. So
nice.
We've been through a lot of ups and downs to get to where we are. But I'm proud of the fact we're still locally owned and are still part of this community.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And do a lot of great work. It's an unbelievable for people that don't understand how complex that is and the documentation.
Oh, it's crazy.
I mean, what do they call that thing? You got to open it.
An oasis.
Yeah. That thing, I looked at it once and my brain doesn't work with that much detail.
Oh, yeah.
So.
It's 99 questions you have to go through virtually. It's funny. I go to those meetings, the national meetings, and I just sit there and shake my head because everybody's more worried about filling in the 90th question. And I, some days want to stand up and go, do you care if I beat the patient? Yeah. You really only care that I answered my 99 questions appropriately and got them submitted timely. So you have that data, but you really don't ask about the care of the patient.
Right. Yeah.
It's all regulatory, and and doctors aren't happy about having to sign documents, all the time, and unfortunately, all those things are out of our control.
Yeah, the recertifications and trying to get the doctors to
recertify.
They're already busy, and
absolutely
they have to keep re-signing and stuff. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's crazy. All right, so one of my favorite questions: if you can go back to you graduating high school, what would you tell yourself about what was going to happen in the future?
Back then, I would tell myself not to be so trusting. I, again, grew up in a very warm, large Italian family, and took me a while to realize that what you hold as important as your personal values doesn't mean somebody else does. And, you can be warm and giving in it and then find out you get slapped for it. So I think some of it was a school of hard knocks. I mean, I had to learn to not be quite so open and warm, and not realize that what I would find appalling doesn't mean somebody else would find appalling in terms of values or morals. And
you end up learning that there's a lot of takers out there too, right?
Yes.
And if you don't recognize, if you have the trust and you keep giving, they'll keep taking.
Absolutely. And I've learned that, my early days the hard way. And honestly, still today, there's one of the employees gave me, it's on my wall, and it says, no good deed goes unpunished. And, that still happens today. You still can do something and then find out it comes back and bites you down the road later. So,
yeah, you can try to do everything right, but one missed labor law or one missed
absolutely
Yeah, it's amazing to me that the number of people you talk to that are like, and I'm sure you've been through this, but we've carried therapists that didn't pass their tests
Oh, yeah.
a couple times, and then as soon as they do, they're gone. Like,
100%.
wait, we
100%. And my VP of HR will always say, we're going to get bit by this. And I'm like, okay. So I think about it and I analyze it and then I decide, okay, I'm still going to take the high road. I'm still going to do the right thing. And then when it comes back to bite me, I'm like, okay, well, I can sleep at night because I didn't do the wrong thing.
right.
I did the right thing. And if they can live with themselves to turn around and do that after everything we've done for them, so be it.
Yeah. So one last thing, like young entrepreneurs or people starting businesses, what advice would you give them?
You need a lot of grit.
A lot of resilience.
A lot of resilience, a lot of grit. There were many times where, we didn't cash paychecks. There were, we cashed in 401k plans. We took seconds on our house more than once, paid it off, and used it again to buy something else. You have to have resilience. You have to have some level of direction. We always said we weren't going to deviate from the senior care business. So now that we've started it, this was it. So when you get, a lot of people dangle all these things that sound great in front of you, but you really have to stick with your core business because in order to be successful, you have to understand that business. And I'm also a firm believer that you have to work in it. Absentee ownership, and especially in the healthcare when you're dealing with people's lives, doesn't work.
No.
So you got to have a lot of grit, and you've got to be involved in that business to make it happen.
Right.
And in the early days when we were much smaller, there wasn't a task that I didn't do personally that I would ever ask anybody else to do. Now I can't say that. I couldn't build today to save my life if I wanted to, but back in the day I could.
Don't ask me about the time clock system or the billing system.
Back in the day I could do everything. So I would never, and like I said, I worked shifts. I would never ask somebody to do something I couldn't do myself. Now I obviously can't say that all today, but I think you got to be able to dig in and know that you have to know your business and you have to work your business.
Yeah, and working it is networking, and especially in the medical world, I think is weird because people don't understand that if we don't have the contracts, it doesn't matter how good you are.
Yeah.
So if you're not networking and meeting people and providing value, that's the other one, right?
Yep.
How fast it can go.
Well, and it's with the new competitors in town, especially those coming in from LA. They the new shiny penny, when they walk into somebody's office, they're going to offer them this or offer them that, or I'm going to bring you lunch. I'm going to buy you this. I'm going to buy you that. And, I always tell my employees, that's fine. They can steal that referral from you. Wait and see if they're still here in 2 months. Because where are they going to get their staff? Where are they, if they're bringing their staff from LA, how many times are they not going to show up at the patient's house? How many times are they not going to have supplies? I mean, all that fizzles out over time. But certainly it's discouraging to the employees when, the new shiny penny walks in front of you and takes something that you've worked hard on or an account you've cultivated and ends up taking that referral and you don't get it. And here we are, community contributor for 40 years and a community player. And yet, somebody from outside the area takes something from us.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more of that as bigger so it grows and the bigger companies are coming here. It's like, okay, but you realize they're not going to be sponsoring teams. They're not going to be contributing to the events, to the nonprofits, and
absolutely.
So, and I know you guys have always been.
We're very big community players, the nonprofits, both in the financial and the assistance and the staff. Absolutely, we are committed to the community. We always do, especially in the senior end of the world. Do participate in all the nonprofit events.
All right, I lied. One more question. So, just a full transparency, you joined the mastermind group, right? Mm-hmm. So what value do you think meeting with other people of, especially the diversity of it?
I think that's it. One is the diversity, and two, it's nice to know sometimes you're not the only one having the same problem. Exactly. It's a different industry, but the same problem. And I value the experience and the knowledge base in our group, and it's always rewarding to find out how somebody else handled something. And think, oh, I didn't think of that. That might work for me. Or on the flip side, since some of us are a little older than others in the group, we can impart some of the things that we've gone through with the scars in our back and say, hey, I've been through this. This is what works.
You're not the first one.
You're not the first one. Yeah. And this is what will work for you if you try this. So it's literally a little bit of both, but I thoroughly enjoy those meetings. I always come away with learning something new.
Yeah, it's crazy the amount of knowledge that flies around.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you being on.
You're welcome.
And,
It was a pleasure.
best of luck with continuing the battle, because I know you're in it for.
In it for the long haul,
Oh,
yes. And California doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, the trips to Cabo are a little
They help to break the monotony a little bit. Yes.
fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's
Appreciate
very
it.
enjoyable.